You will face many defeats in life, but never let yourself be defeated. Maya Angelou. Welcome to the Guyana Dialogue. I'm your hostess, Shamiza Ali. Good evening to everyone joining us on Facebook and on YouTube. Tonight's topic is the state of industrial relations, the GTU strike, and skills training development in Guyana. The Guyana Dialogue is being sponsored by a coordinating council of Guyanese based in the US, UK, Canada, Guyana, and the Caribbean. Funding support is by well known philanthropist Dave Narine from Dave West Indian Imports. Please welcome my moderator for tonight, Dr. Tara Singh.
Much, Sunita, and welcome to our viewers.
Our panelists are Professor Narayan Prasad and Dr.
Hel-
Gangaram Das.
Hello,
Good
everyone.
evening, welcome everyone. And our guest tonight is the Minister of Labor, the Honorable Joseph L. F. Hamilton. Go ahead,
Good
Dr.
night.
Tara.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, Honorable Minister, we want to thank you. I know it has been very hectic and busy time. We are trying to get you for the past weeks, but you were in the country traveling on official business. So we are very grateful to have you. Um, at a general level, if you can just give us an introduction of the state of industrial relations in Guyana, and then you you can probably elaborate a little on the strike, the start of the strike, how it's going, whether it's justified or not. So if you can please proceed
Okay.
along those lines.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. Look, if you follow the last 3.5 going to years, you would note that the industrial relations climate has been very quiet in most part. Um, what I can say to you is that we have been able to have uh, over is one score of collective labor agreements signed between parties. That is the employers and employees representative unions. Um, some of them, they have been outstanding under the previous government. In some instances, the parties didn't even want to sit at the same table to speak to each other. All of those matters now are resolved, and in some instances, they have 3 years CLAs. In the case of the GTNT and the PTW, they have put together one of the most progressive collective labor agreement, uh, I would say, because it speaks beyond salaries and wages. And I've been saying that to representative union leaders, that in today's world, the first point is the employer is not an enemy. The employer is not, the employer should be seen as a, a stakeholder to work with in the interest of your members. And therefore, if the old attitude of prosecuting representation of members is one that is confrontational, it will not argue well and benefit the employees. So the union leadership, they have to be modernized and modern in their thinking. So that's the first point. The second point, in my view, collective labor agreements should not just revolve around the type of salaries and wages. The issue of safety and the health of employees within a workspace is as relevant, and in some instances more relevant than the salary and wages, because I argue, what is the use you are able to have the man receive $5,000 a day salary or wage, and then he will die next week because of the type of no non-adherence to safety and health requirement within the workspace. And the other point is, I have argued that in the collective labor agreement, the labor unions must seek to have enshrined in them the issue about employees' development as regards training and educational development. Uh, in the case of the GT&T and the PTW, they have in that CLA, it has provision for upward mobility of staff, and it speaks to automatic raise of salary for persons who have upgraded themselves uh, in the technical sphere within the workplace. So we have we continue to engage parties to resolve matter. Now, the strike, what is the background? Under former President Jagdeo, for the first time, his government sat down with the GTU and they ironed out a multi-year agreement that dealt with several matters, not just salaries and wages, but it dealt with other benefits for teachers, such as duty-free concessions for teachers at a certain level, such as a revolving loan fund of $200 million that the government made available in a bank for teachers to utilize for housing and housing development. I can say to you that one, that housing fund has not even been utilized by the teachers through the GTU who represent their interests. Secondly, as regards the duty-free concessions, people have reported to the government that it was used in a discriminatory fashion. And many people who did not qualify at the time, they were able to benefit from it. So coming out of that, they, under the last government, they attempted to have the Granger government continue the multi-year agreement, and they rebuffed them. The issues that they have brought to the table, the Granger government did not even pay attention to it. You would know under the Granger government, there was a strike by the teachers union. And at that time, the then minister, Scott, say they were greedy and all that kind of thing. So now we came into government. They made available 41 items for discussion and resolution. Over the period, 27 of those items, they have been resolved, and the government, we have dealt with it, and teachers have benefited. And there are even items that were not on the demand list that the government, we have dealt with as regards teachers. Teachers in Guyana presently are one of the highest paid public servants. We have moved to a place whereby a trainee teacher now earns a salary. In all the years, they received a stipend. Now they are given a salary. Secondly, we have put in place all the necessary facilities whereby teachers can now study from home, utilizing virtual platform. They don't have to come and journey to CPC and be housed and that kind of thing. So all of this was happening, and the union wrote the ministry, even whilst the two parties are engaging last year, and they indicated that the chief labor officer, the Ministry of Labor, should intervene to conciliate and mediate. Our position was, when we spoke to the other party, that is the employer, the Ministry of Education, they advised that they don't know what the GTU they're talking about because they are still in dialogue. And they were continuing to address the outstanding matters. Some of them were not just easy to understand. You would have had to do amendments and regulations, new regulations, and all of those things, including in the package of the 41. The teachers' union was demanding that the government make available for their executive 14 duty-free concessions. So they were not just negotiating for the teachers, they were attempting to negotiate for themselves and for their benefit. So in this year, the union wrote the ministry again, moving from conciliation to demanding arbitration. And the position is from the ministry, how are you demanding arbitration? The point is, arbitration is the last methodology to be utilized in labor relations. Second point is, arbitration cannot be demanded or imposed on the other party or on the ministry. Arbitration is when the two parties recognize that they cannot at all resolve their issues collectively. They request arbitration. And that is when and how. So that the chief labor officer wrote them making those points. When they wrote to say that they will go on strike, might go on strike, we responded to them saying that if you do that, the strike will be illegal. The strike will not have no legitimacy because the parties are still engaged. And at the time, there was a meeting planned for the 21st of February to be held between the two parties to iron out the outstanding issues. And I, as minister, 1 week before the Monday when they were to go on strike, I addressed the matter publicly and made two important points. One, that the strike will be illegal if the teachers go on strike. And secondly, their employer, that is the Ministry of Education, will have no obligations to pay them if they abandon their post. So they were forewarned and they were informed beforehand that if you do that, you will not be paid, cannot be paid, because you have not followed the proper labor relations procedure. The other important point to note in all of this, the strike quickly moved from industrial relations to political. And if you follow the opposition leader statements just 2 days ago, he was talking about an industrial relations scenario that can be problematic or something like that. And in the strike, many days, the spokespersons for the persons who were assembled were not the representative of the unions, or political types, were member of parliaments and the executive of the People's National Congress. And so that is the position. I say this, and I repeat, the people who call the strike must call off the strike, because one of the fundamental principles in labor relations is that the other party must not be put in a position where you're asking them to negotiate under duress. So properly, they cannot ask the Ministry of Education to let us go back to the table when they still have a strike on the road. Teachers are still out of their classrooms where they should properly be. And finally, on this matter, the only way and place that the outstanding matters can be resolved is not on the road. It is around a table discussing it and attempting to resolve it. So where it is at, it don't matter what the GTU do or don't do. At the end of the day, to re-engage, they have to call the strike off. They have to create the necessary conditions for re-engagement. And one of those principal conditions is to remove the impediment that will be deemed putting the other party under duress. So that is the issues regarding the strike
Okay.
at the moment.
Okay, Minister, thank you very much for that broad. Before I pass you on to the panelists, I just want to ask you two things. We were told that the union was supposed to submit annual returns to the registrar of deeds, the commercial registry. They didn't do it since 2004, as well as they didn't submit audited statements to the Auditor General for a number of years. Well, what happened in those cases? Why wasn't action taken either by the PP administration or the PNC administration, some kind of negative sanctions against
Well,
anybody who
a couple
violated?
of things I would want to say without delving into the matter, because you know that matter is before a judge um,
Okay,
in the court. But what you stated are factual things regarding the audited financial statement and the financial statement made available to the
okay,
registrar.
okay,
I would just say this, that the law allows for any union who fails to do that, they can be struck off of the register of trade unions. But I wouldn't want to
yeah,
get
okay,
into that matter. The
all
court
right,
is dealing with that fundamental matter. And of
understood.
course, the other matter is the matter of the government position. They will stop that we will stop being the accountant of the GTU.
I think one of them was in 1989 and the other was 2004. Okay,
Yes.
Professor Narayan, your question now. After this, we're going to restrict this to 10 minutes. Then we got to move on to skills training development. That is very important. So go ahead, Professor Narayan.
Yeah. First, Minister, as an extension of the government, let me commend you for the last 2 weeks of this diplomacy and bringing Guyana into the forefront of international relationships. This I commend you as an extension of the government for, all these dignitaries that were in the country and making agreements with the government. So that is commendable. My question is, much emphasis has been placed on this teacher strike. And does that strike, you mentioned that it takes into consideration wages. Does it take into consideration productivity? When I say productivity, I'm talking about retention, progression, and completion rates within the school system, because teachers have to be held accountable for their responsibilities. Did the union address these points?
No, and just for the viewers' information, look, this strike has allowed us to pay some more attention to education delivery. And the public will be shocked, the parents will be shocked, that what the Ministry of Education found out, that over the years, on any given day, only 70% of teachers are in schools, are in classrooms. You understand that? There is never 100%, 90%, 80%, 70%. I mean, that was a shock and alarm. That the assessment allowed us to pay attention to the matter you have just raised, my friend, about productivity. We say that productivity is at a maximum when the assessment is suggesting that on any given day, only 70% of teachers report to work across the length and breadth of Guyana. So that answers your question about the issue of productivity. And if you extend it further, you can now understand perhaps why we have so much weaknesses in some areas of education delivery and pass rates and all that kind of thing, because you never have in the schools maximum teachers uh, turning out to work to do their jobs.
Yeah.
Follow-
My follow-up question is, of the totality of teachers within the country, what percentage of teachers are legitimate members of the union, and how many of that legitimate group voted for this strike, are in favor of this strike?
The thing is, without, I think that and all, when we examine, that is another matter we have, the ministry rather examine. And I think the number, you have, I think 13,000 teachers are there, something, nearly 14,000 teachers across the country. And it's less than 50% of those teachers are members of the Guyana Teachers Union.
Okay, we move on to Dr. Ganga, your question or clarification to the
Yes.
minister.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, for a very illuminating update. Based on what you have said and some things that I have looked at, there are 5 areas. We have short term cost of living matters, then long term, due to the addition of a new oil industry, we have effects on asset prices. But you did clarify that in terms of duty free concessions and housing funds. So I would assume the duty free concessions would relate to transportation items. They're also very brilliantly or emphatically the environment in which teachers work is very important. You mentioned health, safety, and the other one was human resource development in terms of employee development and training. So these are the 5 areas. There are some remaining questions relating to the short term. I'll deal with that after. But you did mention that 27 out of the 41 issues listed by the union, which gave 14 remaining unresolved items or issues. Could you elaborate on the remaining items? And then I will see how they fit into any of these categories, of these 5 categories that would be on the negotiation table.
The thing is, without, I don't want to give you information that is not um, authentic and correct, right? What I can promise the show is that that information I can get from the Ministry of Education, and I can have it sent uh, to Dr. Singh and the team, so that you can, because I don't want to say the wrong thing, but what I know of the 14, one of those uh, demand was making duty-free concessions available to the executive of the Guyana Teachers Union. As some of the matters, as I understand from the Minister of Education, there are matters that you have to bring to bear legal prescription for them to be effective. So it isn't just, okay, go and do it tomorrow. You know, there you have to do certain amendments and all of those things to allow for those things. If there's an agreement, first there has to be an agreement about them becoming things to be done, and secondly, if that agreement happens, it's not just tomorrow morning you do it. You have to do things that are legal and regulatory to allow for them to happen. And that is what the ministry would keep saying to them regarding many of the outstanding matters.
The um, the Minister of Finance, in his report, in the budget speech 2024, reported that there was a 6.5 increase in 2023 salaries. So now for 2024, we would expect it would be a little bit more than that. So could you elaborate on the expectation on
The thing is,
2024?
look, if you follow what is happening, as I have said, one of the highest paid public servant for service workers are teachers. Just follow the numbers. Teachers' salary increases since we came into government uh, from what they earned in 2019 is nearly 40%. Importantly, the gold scholarship that the government has made available to people and we're funding it. Some 39% of the persons who are on the gold scholarship or who have already qualified themselves are and were teachers. Added to that, part of the concessions granted to teachers, it has allowed for teachers to earn more via an allowance beyond their salaries if they got a first degree, a secondary degree, and a doctorate. So if you add the allowances, you add duty-free concessions for those that qualify, you add the housing revolving fund, and the president has already engaged one of the banks, and they have agreed to give concessionary loans to teachers. So it is not, and that is one of the difficulty you have with people who argue benefits for employees. They say only on what the salary is and will be. Benefits go beyond salaries. If the teacher had to go and do the course that they have developed themselves in with a master's or a doctorate or a first degree, they would have had to pay for that out of their pocket. So that is a benefit into thousands of US dollars. And the government compensate you for the benefit that they have allowed you to acquire by giving you an allowance additional to your salaries. But that is lost on all of these people who propagate the issues about teachers and their salary. The classroom, the change in the classroom, removing certain administrative functions from your teachers, and the government now pays for people to do administration within the schools. I mentioned the trainee teachers who are now being paid whilst they're being trained, not a stipend. You know, whilst we speak, the trainee nurses are still receiving stipends. Whilst the trainee teachers, they are receiving a salary whilst they're being trained. So if you look widely of all government employees, teachers, since the PPP came into government the last 3.5 years, they have benefited substantially, far more than the average public servants. The government and the president deliberately sought to deal with 3 segments of the public service. In the first instance, the discipline forces, the medical employees, and the teaching profession. So the 6.5% is additional to what teachers they receive, whilst the other public servants they were not so they did not receive the type of benefits that teachers have received. They just received their salary increases
Yeah.
over the period in the last 3 years.
Okay. Minister, we got some short time now, and we want to go back to the critical area, the overall picture of Guyana in terms of its development. We need a lot of skills training to fill the important slots in the economy. Um, I want to read you some figures which I was able to extract from the budget speech. Now, I know your ministry is in charge of the Board of Industrial Training, and that I think you all graduated 4,439 students last year in various types of skills, and the projection for this year is 7,890. That's for the Board of Industrial Training that falls under your jurisdiction. Now, the TIBET, there's a technical and vocational educational program that falls on the Ministry of Education, but they also had 2,049 graduates, and they plan to double that for this year to 4,940. Now, but I know all these are linked to some extent. And then there's a Guyana Technical Training College that will be set up in Port Morant. Phase one will be 25 students, and they will be focusing on electrical, mechanical, and instrumentation as a start. Then phase two, other programs will be added. So you're on the move there. Now, I just want to mention that you mentioned about gold. The gold scholarship awarded by the government last year was 7,752. So that bring it up to date to 21,442. Did I hear you right when you said about 4,000 teachers benefit from the gold scholarship?
No, I said 39% of the people who
Oh, okay,
benefited
okay,
from Gold
okay,
Scholarship are teachers.
okay. I just want, and then finally, at the higher level, the UG, they produced 3,520 graduates last year. And I understand they will build a new health science education facility in this year. Now, these are all linked. Some, most of these areas are really technical. UG might be some arts, humanities, etc. But this focus seemed to be in the right direction to prepare critical skills for the government. Now, how much of this are you still importing or expect to import? I know you have upgraded significantly the skills, you're getting more people into it. But apart from that, what role the private sector, I guess they're doing their own training as well. So if you can comment.
No, look. I will say this. All the things you have said, they're factual things, but there are a couple of things. Right now, in my view, we're dealing with a short-term and medium-term issue. I've said this before, and let me repeat it, that I think as a nation, we have to pay attention to how we deliver education. And secondly, we have to ensure that technical vocation education be as prominent as academic education. Those are the long term, that is the long term goal, in my view. But the short term and medium term, the other thing I would want to say is look, we are attempting to ensure that all our people are skilled, upgraded, trained, that they can earn uh, good salaries. But I would say that the pace and the rate and the things that Guyana will do and have to do to become a modern country, even if we train everyone in Guyana, we would still have to import labor. And that's a recognition of the government. And that's the reason why we're discussing a migrant labor policy um, that we will bring to the nation once that is refined and defined, because there's a recognition that you have to do that, right? But the government, and you know, you don't have to listen to the government. Listen to the people who are speaking about the government progress, whether the IMF, the World Bank, the IDB, all of those people who have the capacity to assess government and its economic development program, all of them speak glowingly of Guyana. Other countries, they speak glowingly of Guyana. And it is only a fool. It is only a fool would continue to propagate and suggest that we are not developing. The reality is, every day there are changes in this country that are to the benefit of the Guyanese people.
Um, Before I pass on to Professor Narayan, quickly, in terms of these scholarships award, in terms of equity, is there any problem about race imbalance in the awards of these scholarships?
No, they're not. But we're dealing with opposition and some people who everything they find race as a factor in, and it informs the nation and the people in the diaspora also, that if you have no economic program to present to the nation, if you don't see yourself as a government in waiting, the only thing you can latch on to is the conversation of race, and that is where the opposition is at. We don't expect better from them. So at least I have not heard them seeking to suggest that there is a racial imbalance in the distribution of scholarships
Right.
through the goal.
Thank you, Minister. Professor Narayan.
Yeah, Minister, I was wondering, since academicians tend to think highly of their qualifications and flaunt their degrees, maybe I'm not qualified enough, having a PhD myself, being a teacher in the Guyana service for a while, and being a trainee at the Port Moran Training School as well, that was mentioned. I was wondering whether any comparative analysis has been done on labor. For example, teachers claim because of their academic qualifications they deserve more. What about law enforcement? Would say that we are providing a service, that our lives are at risk. They can value that at a higher level than teachers value their academic qualifications. So how can the government put together a comparative analysis to show the differences in the labor force? And even cane cutters who produce surplus every day, not because they are uneducated, but the surplus labor that they produce is facilitating the country's development as well. So you have to take all of these things into consideration and not have a flawed or jaundiced view of what one sector of the labor force claims or want for their benefit, solely for their benefit.
Professor, we who have come out from colonial society, what we did, and the remnants are still around, where we stratify citizens in those who will do clean work and those who will do dirty work. And therefore, even at the level of parenting, we continue to do that. And so that's an issue. So the point you're raising is an important point to pay attention to, as to the productive sector. The farmer, if he don't, with all our degrees, if he don't farm, we will not eat. We'll eat grass. So every the army personnel right now, they have to leave their family because of the Venezuelan threat and controversy, and they have to be on the borders there, securing the integrity of our country. The policeman that is exposed to all kinds of elements daily, the medical personnel, and we can go on and on and on. The point is, there is no section of employees that are greater and better than the other sector. Some people have not awakened to that fact. And the deficiency we have that Dr. Singh was talking about within the sector, it is because we are yet to understand the importance of technicians in a developing country, a country that has to develop. So even at the University of Guyana, we have to do a serious assessment as to whether what we are training are necessary in the quantities we're training. And you gentlemen and lady, you all know enough that some of the training and skill sets and professions, they're going out of style. Unheard of professions and are new right now, and the future they talk about. So this matter you raise is a fundamental matter for discussion, so that people will grasp and understand that every employee is equal to the other one. No one is a greater. No one is mortal, and the other one is immortal. And that is what people have to get in their heads. And so, some people argue when they cuss me out, they paint the teachers' strike like if it's a different strike, if it's a different labor relations matter, that we should throw the law aside, or we should amend the law to facilitate this. The teacher strike is a strike like any other strike. It's a labor relations matter between employers and an employer and employees and representative. It's another strike. That is what it is. It's not a special strike.
All right.
But some people want us to apparently throw the law aside and to intervene because they think it's a special strike. The Minister of Labor and the Ministry of Labor see this as another labor relations issue that must be resolved.
All right. Thank you, Minister. Dr. Ganga,
Yes.
your final.
What to thank our moderator for mentioning the formal technical programs that comes under the Board of Industrial Training. I was wondering about private institutions partnerships, and if there are any issues such as funding and how government might facilitate private institutions to assist in the development of human resource capital and skills and so forth.
So my game plan since I became minister is collaboration, and I can go through a long list of collaboration that we have done with public sector, with private sector. Right now, we are having discussion. We're about to sign a MOU with the Reunion Gold Mines, where we would use our facility at Bartica to train all the people that they will employ in Region 7. We have an engagement with Gaisuco, where we pay for, we place apprentices, and also we do training at their facility. And the private sector, we have engagement with them. Some private sector training institutes, they are now including some technical programs like Nations and so. But generally, we have an arrangement with private sector entities regarding training and skills development, and that will continue. We are now discussing with oil and gas companies the apprenticeship programs for them to allow for the development of apprenticeship program within oil and gas. So yes, the recognition is that we have to do this together, whether public sector or private sector. Even in the public sector, we have partnered with many sister ministries and agencies to have training done through the Board of Industrial Training.
Do you see opportunities in the transportation sectors? Like I know in the past, we built bus bodies, right on our lot at Covent Garden. We build the bodies, and I've seen some videos where they build metal buses in Pakistan, for example. And I'm saying, wait a minute, we had Sprostons, we could be doing similar things. So these type of end results, when you look at what they have built, could actually stimulate growth in the private sector to build things that they can relate to and that they can mobilize and develop these kind of welding skills, not necessarily for the or associated with the oil sector, but let's say the transportation sector. We had those yellow buses in the past. We could go back and build bus bodies, start there, and also shipbuilding. All of these are areas where we can put light on the end result of the skills development programs and processes.
The thing is, and that is why you have to snigger at persons who don't understand the need and importance of the gas to energy program and project, because all the things you have just spoken to, the fundamental question is resolving, firstly, the issue of power generation at a cheaper rate and stable. We cannot talk seriously industrialization to the scale you have just narrated and manufacturing unless we settle and resolve the issue of power generation, its stability and its cost effectiveness, so that the private sector who have invested their money, they can be competitive whether in CARICOM, in South America, or further afield. And that is the reason why we are pushing and rushing to deal with the question of power generation. We could have had 163 megawatt power in the system if the APNO FC did not scuttle the Amelia Falls project. So yes, we will get back there, but we have to first settle the question of power generation.
All right. Thank you, Minister. Finally, I want to ask you this question. You have done a lot of training through BIT as well as Ministry of Education through TIVET. But do we have any data on how many of these people get gainful employment after training?
Well, I can speak to the Ministry of Labor, where we do tracer tracking and studies. And the last set of numbers I saw was about 70% of persons who gain employment in the skill area for which they were trained. Some of them were studying, doing other things. So yes, we have some numbers, and we continue to do that. Deliberately, we set up a BIT monitoring and evaluation department to be able to do that. The other important thing is that we can also now point private sector in the different regions to where and to whom they can seek out for specific skills set that they might need in their companies.
So are you saying your ministry is creating a skills registry, something of that sort?
Yes, we're developing that.
An inventory of
Yes,
skills needed.
yes, we are doing that. We're developing that. And secondly, we work in conjunction, that is BIT work in conjunction with the Central Recruitment and Manpower Agency. That's the placement arm of the ministry. And we have a platform, a job bank, where people can go up there and register and put up all their certificates. And companies are registered there, over 200 and odd companies. And we have been able to find jobs for hundreds of persons utilizing that platform that we have put in place in 2022 March.
Do you have technical assistance from ILO for these projects or in-house?
No, ILO has been helping us with technical assistance in different areas at the ministry. They have done a assessment and a report about remodeling apprenticeship program, which we're reviewing. They made available a technical person to pay attention to advise us. So we have intervention with other parties from the UN level who we work along with to help to roll out these programs.
All right, thank you very much, Minister. Professor Nari, Dr. Ganga, your final comments, not a question, your final comment. Please make it brief.
Now, like, I would just like to thank the minister for his analysis and presentation of the factual information. Thanks.
Dr. Ganga?
Yes, I would like to see some links with the high schools, and so that the youngsters can look forward to some technical careers as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ganga. Shamisa, do you have any questions?
I do have from Mahindra. He says, beyond the teacher strike for an adjustment of salary, how is the Ministry of Labor going to balance fair wages on a broader scale, safety standards, and other employment practices across various labor markets? As Guyana is on the path of major economic and social transformations, for instance, if we're offering tax concessions to investors, great, they come and create employment, but is government equally negotiating the fair value for labor?
The thing is, everything has to be put in context. So we are moving from a place where under the previous government there was no labor ministry to where one is reestablished, and you have to build structure whilst you give service, and that is what we have been doing over the last 3.5 years. It's a work in progress. Many of the things that we know must happen, it needs time for it to happen, whether in occupation safety and health, whether in training, whether in protecting the rights of the workers in some sectors that are not so easy to monitor. All of those things are work in progress. First, the person who sent the question would recognize that you first have to have qualified people trained to do the work. And that is what also we have to do at the same time. We have to have people specialize in different areas. So yes, that is happening. As regards the concessions and so given by the government, all of those, that type of analysis is done by the Ministry of Finance before concessions are given. The value of the concessions, the reason for the concession, and how it will benefit the nation, how it will benefit the citizens of the nation. So yes, all of those things are done. Concessions are not given out willy-nilly, but the person would appreciate also that you have to make your country attractive for investors to come and invest. And right now, the hot country in the world, or the hottest, is Guyana. All the statistics and all the writers in economic theory and financing, all of them speak about Guyana and what is being done and what is to be done.
Thank you. And your closing remarks for us this evening?
Okay, let me say thank you again for having me. I hope that your viewers and listeners, they have paid attention to the factual information, and that is important because we live in a world where fake news run faster than facts. And therefore, I would hope that the viewers and listeners, they pay attention to the facts that was brought in this program on behalf of the government, and do not allow themselves to be fooled by propaganda and political rhetoric from the opposition and other people who want to see the government fail. And our intention is to ensure that that don't happen. And so every day we continue this journey, and we give thanks to platform like this, where you can allow us to share the government view on matters that are important to the Guyanese in Guyana and outside of Guyana.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Minister Hamilton, and thank you for taking the time to be here this evening. Thank you to our entire panel, our moderator. Thank you very much. Until next time, I am Shamiza Ali, and this is the Guyana Dialogue. Thank you to all our viewers. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you,
Good evening.
Honorable Minister.
Have a good night, everybody.
We had a very nice, informative program, very educational. Thank you very much. Thank you, panelists.